It's time to talk about The Legend of Zelda. As we have found out over the years, gamers can be a persistent bunch. They are the sorts of people who do not take slights lightly.
Can I just preface this by saying I've never played The Legend of Zelda?
I think I played Twilight Princess on the Nintendo Wii at my friend's house about 15 years ago when it first came out, and it was fun. And I always hear really good things about the games, and despite not wanting to look like a cuckold, I do kind of want a Switch just so that I can play some of these more recent Mario and Zelda games that have come out, because they look like good fun.
I've heard nothing but glowing things about Zelda.
Do you know what they look like? They look like actually fun games, which is something that doesn't come out as much anymore.
Yeah, it's hard to believe. They also look like they don't have much DLC.
No. And they also don't look like they're trying to shove progressive messaging down my throat.
Yeah, it's pretty traditional Japanese storytelling.
But even within that paradigm, the West still can't help but try and just shove it down where it isn't welcome anyway. And on those sorts of narratives, you did a recent premium podcast that Connor was hosting, where you're talking about, is Jesus Christ a socialist? Because the left...
Well, it's not just the left. Connor was schooling me.
Oh, really?
Well. Yeah.
All right.
Because I'd made this comment in a conversation with Crowder like years ago, back when I was on the left. And Connor was like, no, he's not. And he goes into really autistic.
You could see his ears getting redder and redder. It's very visible with Connor.
But he did a really good job on it. So
yeah, I'm sure he did, because Connor knows a lot about all of this stuff. He's a big Christian himself.
He's got the receipts.
I'm sure he does. So if you want more examples of how the left, whenever they try and co-opt something like this, are just lying, let's be perfectly honest here, they are just lying about these things. Check that out, because the work that we do on the website, we put a lot of effort into it, we put a lot of work into it, and if you appreciate everything that we do, you should support us, because we don't just do it for us, we do it for you, so that we can dispel all sorts of myths and give you the information that's actually worth it. So it only costs £5 to sign up for a bronze tier membership on the website, and that gives you access to everything. So please think about contributing and helping us.
We do have a massive library of stuff.
We've got a ridiculous library of stuff. It's very... It's chunky.
It's great, isn't it?
It's thick and chunky. Anyway. And to start off with this, I thought I'd just point to a tweet that you put out, which I found quite amusing, because it just go to show the influence that Gamergate has had, which is that even 10 years almost later, they still know that, okay...
It's just not worth it.
Yeah, it's just not worth it. It turns out, riling up a group of people who are, by definition, a bunch of internet-bound autists who don't go outside very often and have a lot of spare time to do anything, will get you in trouble. We'll get your social media manager a bigger headache than is worth it.
Yeah, it's just not worth it. Like, we could put the rainbow flag on the icon, or we could just leave it, and it costs us nothing to leave it, and there's absolutely no headache there whatsoever. So
can I just also point out the shout out to the Mr. Roland Rat in the comment there, famous Who Would You Do host, children's entertainer, sheepskin rug merchant.
Occasional butter dealer.
Yeah, putting here, the long arm of Gamersgate extends infinitely forward. He can't even get it right. He can't even get the name of it right.
But that's fine.
That's incredible. So what I'm talking about, the most recent Zelda game came out, and it's received quite a lot of accolades since it's come out, like about 2 weeks ago, where it says Tears of the Kingdom is now the UK's 6th best-selling Zelda game of all time, and there's like 30 of these things. It's one of those Nintendo series where there's dozens of games that you can go through. Each one experiments with something different and is interesting in its own right. If you scroll down so we can look at this picture as well, here's something else I like about these games, which will be expanded on in a moment, which is that Callum and I, a few months ago it was at this point, when we were talking about Hogwarts Legacy, Callum was complaining about the lack of actual clarity in video game graphics, because you always get the fidelity argument where you want it to be as HD as possible. You want everything. You want to be able to see the pores in the character's skin when you zoom in on their face. No, that doesn't matter. No. It doesn't matter. What matters is me being able to tell what the hell I'm doing if I'm playing the game.
It's supposed to be nice on the eye.
And if you look at this, I can tell that the big green orb is the thing that I'm supposed to be thinking is important. Yeah. I can see the characters, the designs are pretty distinct, and everything is nice and clear that I can look at there. So I think this hopefully would pass the Callum test.
Just a quick thing, like, I've never owned a Nintendo, right? My parents bought me a Sega when I was like 14 or something.
I had a Game Boy Advance and DS back in the day.
And it's not like that I didn't like Nintendo. Like, I haven't like played Nintendo games on my friends' things. But one of the things that I find that's interesting about Nintendo is that they've just always committed to being as high quality as they can. Like, the games are fun. Right? There's never been any sort of avant-garde nonsense. It's like
You also
here's another Mario game. You're going to jump on blocks. It's like, yeah, but that's what I wanted out of Mario.
There you go.
You know?
I mean, they'll experiment within that framework,
Sure.
but the actual gameplay, like with Zelda, is always about exploring a big world and
exactly.
having fun adventures.
Yeah, you know that it's going to be reliably of a certain quality with Nintendo. That's the
As far as I'm aware, you never hear any big controversial stories about Nintendo games coming out and being complete buggy messes.
No, never.
Either, which is something that we'll get onto. And further in this article, they say it was released May 12th, sold 10 million copies worldwide in its first 3 days. Very impressive as far as I can tell.
Nintendo.
Fastest selling game in the history of the series and fastest selling Nintendo game for any system in the West, in Europe and America. And Western developers, they just go, how do you do that? How? Tell us your black magic. Tell us your secrets.
Well,
we need to understand.
It begins by respecting the audience, right?
No, can't do that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we're out.
Well, yeah, well, if that's
Not
what
our
it takes,
job.
I guess we're
Yeah.
going to have to keep accepting that sweet, sweet BlackRock money
But that
instead
is-
of the audience's money.
But that is literally the secret of Nintendo, though. It is literally, look, we have a franchise that we take care of because we know you like the franchise. And our taking care of the franchise is respecting your interest in this. That's all it's based on.
Yeah, I think Metroid is one of their big franchises, and they released 2 or 3 games in a row that people didn't like very much from that series.
Mm-hmm.
So they just stopped for a while. They might be bringing it back soon, but they're not like, we're going to keep shoveling this crap
Yeah.
down your throat.
Like, again, respect for the... Okay, we messed up on that, so we'll just stop doing that and we'll do something that we know you do like. So it's just such a... Again, like 20 years ago, every company was like this. You didn't get the Bud Light. You didn't get the Miller, like all that sort of stuff. You know?
Yeah, John's saying old school graphics, good games, no microtransactions,
Yeah, for the 40K
no
bolt
nonsense.
gun.
Oh yeah, 40k bolt gun.
I've actually got a copy. I'll probably stream it.
Oh,
like,
retro
tonight or something.
pixel shooter. That
Yeah,
sounds
yeah,
pretty
yeah.
cool,
No,
actually.
it looks great. But anyway, but the point is, like, it's just about respecting the audience, and that's the same with films. It's the same with music. It's the same with anything. It's just not hating the people that you want to cater to. Like, it's such a small step.
Once again, the
Such a small
Western
step.
developers, they just can't understand that. In particular, there's one Western developer who is particularly bad for this recently, which is one that I used to love. They did
Go on.
Crash Bandicoot,
Oh, yeah.
Jack and Daxter, some of the early Uncharted games, some of my favourite games of all time, Naughty Dog.
Mm-hmm.
Their narrative director, according to this article, a guy called Josh Scher, was on Twitter praising the game, asked Nintendo just how it managed to pull off such a massive accomplishment. And he was saying, oh, you know, it's such a miracle, the way that the players are allowed to use various abilities to solve puzzles any way they choose. One of the most impressive aspects of the experience, that just used to be called gaming.
Yeah.
That used to be called gameplay. We decided that instead of having a corridor that had one thing that you can do, we have a big open room where there's 4 or 5 different things that you can
Did
do.
you ever play any of the Dungeon Master games?
No, I didn't.
Ancient, right? You know, it's the sort of first-person dungeon crawler, right?
Yes, I'm aware of it.
Imagine just how non-linear that game is, right? Literally, you used to have to sit there with square what's it called, the chart paper, whatever it's called, the paper with
Graph paper?
graph paper, that's it, right? And you used to have to block it out to figure out where the path was, and so you had to map out the dungeon itself yourself, because otherwise you're just going to be lost in there forever.
See, that's quite cool. I find that stuff even more immersive if I'm
Yeah,
having
it
to
was
take
great.
it into the real world to figure out what I'm doing as well.
It was genuinely great. I mean, obviously now with the internet, you just go and get one that someone else has done. But this was before the internet that I was playing this, and so like there was no hand holding. It was just like good luck, and you're on your own. And these guys are like, yeah, but I mean, it's not just a linear corridor.
But
Yeah,
how
I
are we
know.
going to preach? If they have multiple rooms to go into, then we can't put the big progressive posters in every room.
Yeah,
can
you might miss it.
Yeah, there you go. And this article as well that came out just saying that, yes, it's a masterpiece, but it's an ugly masterpiece, which I just think is...
Is it?
I don't think it looks particularly ugly to me. It's a bit cel-shaded, bit dated, you could argue, but it looks damn good.
But like John was saying with 40k bolt gun, that's obviously meant to look like Doom, like the original Doom, and it plays a lot like, in fact, it plays faster than the original Doom. But like, there's nothing wrong with that as a kind of aesthetic.
No,
there's nothing wrong with it.
If it's a deliberate artistic choice,
Yeah.
if it works, it looks nice. There you go.
It's like pixel art now. There's
And
nothing
to
wrong
be
with pixel
fair,
art.
the rest of this article is just praising it for deciding not to prioritize graphics over gameplay, which is good. And one of the other things that they did, which is amazing, that maybe Todd Howard from Bethesda might want to think about doing in the next article, please, John, was that it turns out that they actually completed the game a year ago,
Really?
and then decided to take the entire year just to make sure that it won't defecate on itself the second it gets released into the public.
I can't help but want to salute that kind of work ethic.
I appreciate it.
Can you even imagine? Like this is why I'm kind of annoyed that I don't play Nintendo games.
They obviously care, and they care about the audience experience. Can you imagine if Fallout 76 had done this? We wouldn't have all of those glitch compilations.
Rome, Total War Creative Assembly.
Really, are they bad for it as well?
Oh, terrible! Oh my god, you should. Like I remember,
I've not played Total War.
Like 2013, I think it was when Rome 2 came out. I was a massive fan of Rome 1. Loved Medieval 2. Rome 2 came out, and it was just junk. It was unplayable junk. Like you'd normally in the previous games you'd have like regiments of men, right? So it'd be like 8 men deep, like 10 men across. So you got these blocks of actual units of soldiers moving around. You move them and they'd fight, and it'd be proper tactics. In Rome 2, when it first came out, they abandoned that and they just had amorphous blobs. Everything would just become 2 amorphous blobs that blobbing at each other. It's like, what? Why have you done this? Right? Like 5 years later, it all got fixed. But like, why did it take that?
Why didn't you just... If it took the extra 5 years to be a game worth playing, why didn't you just don't release it?
Exactly.
There you go. And I've got other examples here. Mass Effect Andromeda.
Yeah,
that was another glitchy mess. There was what was it?
There were loads. There were just so many.
It was the classic, my face hurts right now, which is why my facial animations are completely terrible. Don't ask questions. Assassin's Creed Unity. Do you remember the awful spaghetti faces glitches?
Yeah, and the thing is, I wouldn't begrudge them if they were brand new studios who are like, look, we've got essentially like the alpha of the game ready. We're going to release it so you can help us develop it by keeping us funded. That's fine. But that's not what these studios are. Bethesda, all of these studios are massive studios.
Ubisoft, they've been around for 20 plus years.
They've got no excuse. Absolutely no excuse. And Nintendo are genuinely just showing everyone up by being professional.
Nintendo's been around for about 40 years, and they just, with that 40 years of experience, they behaved like a company that has 40 plus years of experience.
Like, again... Yeah, John's pointing out, remember the Nintendo Wii was a massive success because it had good games. The hardware was inferior to the competition at the time. That's a great point. And everyone dunked on it for having inferior hardware, but it was massively popular, especially with normies.
And on some of the cultural differences between how the West treats its audience versus how the East does, here's just the depiction of women. On the left, we see women who look like women, and on the right, we see shaven gorillas.
Ladies, which company do you feel is respecting you as a woman?
Do you see that one on the top right as well?
Yeah.
That's a particularly bad example because that's the sequel to, I think, Horizon Zero Dawn. Right. And in the first one, she wasn't like a supermodel attractive protagonist, but she sure as hell looked a lot better than that. Yeah. They actively made her more ugly. Yeah, some people suggest that they are doing this to make sure they do not upset the LGBT community who will play their games. And then there was Abby in the bottom right corner, the antagonist of Last of Us 2.
Are definitely angry about all of this. But but this is the point. Like, none of this respects what women are as women, right? At least the Nintendo ones are. I mean, look, the top one is not like a supermodel, right? But it's
feminine.
It's not just feminine. It's like advancing a female aesthetic that women might want to aspire to, right? They might like that. They might cosplay as that person.
Oh, I bet they are already.
Exactly. No one's cosplaying as the one on the right.
No one's cosplaying as Abby. Let me just hit the gym for 6 months.
She looks like the bully from Back to the Future.
She looks like Biff.
Yeah, she looks like Biff. Yeah, exactly. Right? No one's cosplaying as that because that's not aspirational. That's not in any way virtuous. That's gross. It's actually, I find it totally disrespectful to women, and I say that as a misogynist.
Well, we misogynists have a certain respect for women.
Obviously, I'm joking, but it's just gross. It's just gross.
No, interestingly enough, the one on the bottom right, Abby from Last of Us 2, the developers are Naughty Dog, whose level designer was like, how do you do this game? Well, it turns out, once again, if you don't decide to try and make all of your characters hideous and androgynous and insult the fans for enjoying the protagonist of your first game so much. Joel was supposed to be the bad guy, don't you? No, he was a base dad protecting his adopted daughter. Yeah. That's what the whole story was about. Neil Druckmann, who wrote it, thought, well, I obviously didn't make him racist and evil enough.
Well, that's why everyone liked it. That was genuine. I never played The Last of Us, but I saw lots of people talking about it and why they liked it.
You're probably aware of what happens in the story as well.
Yeah, exactly. Because of like just cultural diffusion, because it had a cultural impact, because people found the characters relatable.
And then the first thing he does is get this androgynous menace in the bottom right to beat him to death.
I think it was Mauler playing this one.
Yeah.
And it's just like, this character is designed to be evil and you're forced to join their side, basically.
You're not just forced to join their side, you're forced to sympathize with
Yeah,
her. That's what the
exactly.
narrative is trying to do. And at
But
one
that's not a
point,
sympathetic character at all.
you're forced to play as her in a boss fight
Yeah.
against the main protagonist of the set of the first game, or at least Ellie from the first
Yeah,
game.
as if you're trying to hurt the audience.
The amount of compilations I saw of people just letting themselves die
Yeah,
in
I
that
bet,
boss
yeah.
fight because they were like, no, this is the good ending.
Yeah.
Abby dies,
Yeah.
Ellie gets revenge, they all go home.
I'm invested in the hero of the previous game, and you're making me play the villain in this game to kill that. But no, I'm not doing it, and I totally get it. I totally get it.
Are you surprised when Neil Druckmann, and I got this from a
He's an
different...
insanely woke.
Oh, massively so, because I found this is from a different article, John, so don't worry about bringing it up. I found it from an article where it said, Druckmann, 2013, gave a keynote speech citing feminist frequency
Yeah,
tropes as an inspiration.
Big fan
and
of
then
Denise Sarkeesian.
he also spoke fondly about Sarkeesian during the build-up to the release of Uncharted 4, so
Yeah.
we're not particularly surprised that he decided to go this way. But what do Western publications go on about? What do the big ones talk about? Polygon, they're your favourites, right? Everybody's favourite Polygon.
Love Polygon.
Link is
Simple
a
as.
gay icon, and Zelda fans know it.
But Link was not gay.
Link is in fact saving the princess.
Yeah, that's literally because everyone's like, oh, well, Zelda must be the main character. No, Zelda's the princess that Link is. Again, I've never played it. I just know this from cultural diffusion. Link is the hero trying to save the princess.
Once again, there are missions. If you go to the next link, this is the article. There are missions where basically there's a mission in Breath of the Wild, I think, where you have to sneak into a city that's full of women. Only women are allowed in. So you have to dress up as a woman to do it.
Right.
And
Oh, he's trans now.
so he's trans now. There you go. Link Twink confirmed.
Yeah, there we go.
And it's really funny, this article, actually, because it says down here. So quest, he has to dress and drag in order to get into this city. To get the right clothes, he has to track down a man who snuck into the town. The person he meets is wearing traditional Gerudo dress, but after he confirms her identity and then literally squints at her face and body, the dialogue prompt either allows you to compliment her beauty or declare that she's a man.
Oof.
Essentially, the quest forces Link to clock a trans woman. The quest fails trans Zelda fans in so many major ways.
You've always got the option of complimenting.
Obviously, if I were to play that, I would immediately go with the hold up. There's something going on here.
Well, that's just amazing, isn't it?
And I love the logic further up the article as well, where it just says, oh yeah, we love TransLink, and we know that TransLink is a real thing because fanfic perverts have lots of Rule 34 artwork online depicting him as such.
I was literally going to say, just because there's Rule 34 artwork of it does make it canon. Thank God.
This is porn-addled brains who cannot see anything that's the slightest bit androgynous and not go, this is about butt sex.
But this is the thing, like Link is sneaking into an all-women's city or whatever as part of a mission. Like, it's not. That's
this
not
is
a
the same
declaration of identity.
Final Fantasy VII, Cloud does the same thing. He has to sneak into a brothel at one point, and he dresses as a woman to do so, and it's made a joke of because some of the guys are like, "Ooh, hello there, young lady." Yeah. It's not the point to go, see, he was gay all along. No,
it's
a joke.
No, he's not.
It's a joke because the Japanese actually have a sense of humour about these things, shockingly enough. And then there's this cope in the next article as well, talking about, may have the series' first ever gay character, this new game. All right. And this is going to sound... Tell me if this sounds like familiar reasoning to you. So there's a character you meet who is the associate understudy of some great man who's really good in whatever field. I think he's an archaeologist or something. This is an aspiring archaeologist. He gets to work with his hero, and you find his journal where he says, I really wanted to compliment him, say how amazing he was. Of course, I didn't actually say it. I was very flustered whenever I was around him. He complimented me at one point, and I was very flustered and couldn't say anything in return. And this article just goes, gay. This is like
worship.
This is like in Lord of the Rings when they see Sam and Frodo, two men sharing a bond over shared experiences, and they go, "This has to be gay somehow."
But this is not in any way gay. This is hero worship. This is about having a huge amount of respect for the person that has just given you a compliment on your work. I assume didn't compliment his figure or something, right? And was just like, "Yeah, you've done good work." Thinking, "Oh my God, my hero just said I did good work." This is validation.
Once again,
gay.
This is porn brain. You need to stop watching porn.
Yes.
Or stop watching such perverted porn. Go back to missionary if you must. But seriously, just stop it. This is not normal. You shouldn't be looking at normal platonic relationships between people and going, this is, how can I make this sexual in some way? Yeah. Sometimes relationships just exist without sex.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? They genuinely can't conceive of a person liking or loving another person that doesn't involve their own genitalia.
It's quite disturbing.
It's gross.
It's very disturbing, especially given that canonically Link's a Christian. You just can't you can't deny this. Here is Link praying to Jesus.
Yep.
And people were freaking out about this, saying, no, he can't be a Christian. Christians can be twinks too. Well, he's not.
Why can't he be a Christian?
Sorry to break it to you, and here's more proof. Here's him with a cross shield in the next one. He's a warrior of Jesus.
Yeah.
And even worse for the shippers who desperately want him to be based, tranny, queer icon in the next one. It turns out that... all those times he tried to save the princess is because he was in love with the princess.
And she was in love with him.
I know. What a big shock.
Heroic Christian man goes to save a beautiful woman that he loves and loves him back.
And then they get married and live happily ever after.
Leftist most affected because he's not gay.
Yes. So please, Western developers, if there's a lesson you're going to learn from this is make good games. I don't care to see the sweat droplets individually rolling down this person's porous cheeks on every single game, and I don't care about the 30-minute cutscene of a bad rejected Hollywood script you have to tell me. I just want to play a good game.
If you appreciated that segment from the podcast The Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content that's on the site, such as the Brokenomics series, this episode on Investing Part 2 with Peter Lowry. If you'd like to find out what else is being put out, you can follow on Getter at lotuseaters_com on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.